Okay, so welcome to episode 3 of U+WE Teachable Moments. Today we've got another first-year undergrad on BMS. I feel like I'm using the entirety of my student cohort and coercing them into telling me about their year for my own benefit. So we've got Bethany Thompson, which I feel like I've checked this multiple times before, but I always then refer to you as Beth. But is it Beth or Bethany?
Beth, please. I feel like I'm being told off every time someone says Beth. You say it in the emails, and I have to go back and change it because it's at the print at the bottom.
Exactly. I do that every time. If it's one, I'm like, oh man, was it Tom or Thomas? I then check their signature. They've signed off as Thomas. That must be what they want to be called. And then they call me an idiot in class for saying, Thomas, what do you reckon? It's Tom. What are you talking about? I've told you this before.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is quite fun. So how you doing? I see you're back on campus. You can always tell by the blue pinboard that people try to make look less like
It's horrific. They never tell you how bare it is here. But yeah, it's also freezing. That's one thing. I completely forgot about it when I came back because the heating, it's one of the worst experiences because you have to put it on and you'll go into max and then in around 30 minutes it'll drop down to low and then turn itself off. It's just to save money. So yeah, that's room to room, so you can control it in the room, but it just turns icebox. It kind of preheats the room and goes, that's enough. You'll get a blanket. Yeah, so I came back and I have like 3 extra blankets. Even in the living room, all of us have brought like a cushion and a blanket so that we can all like huddle up in the evenings and try and keep warm. Because we're on the other side of like the sun setting. It's cool though. It's a bonding experience.
What, as everyone gathers around for warmth, like the end of, what was it, the day after tomorrow, when they're in the library burning books to stay warm.
That's literally how it went. Like we watched Game of Thrones in the evening, so I never watched it. And one of the lads is obsessed with it, and he's like, we watch like 3 episodes in the evening, so we'll be there from like 9 p.m. until like 1 a.m. just watching it, trying to like stay warm. It's dedication.
But it's funny in our offices, which I don't know if it's different on the different, like X block and the engineering block and all that sort of thing. But over in A to M, the heating's on from October till it is about April, May, but it's behind me in my office, like the radiator, and the guys don't like it when I hang my running stuff and like the winter weather on there because it just smells a wet dog in the room. But in April, all day long, it's like in sweatbox in there, so you have to put it down to the defrost mode just so we don't all bake. So it's funny to hear that you guys that are living in a building, it's like, no, we will limit the heat we give you. The staff need heat.
Yeah. That's totally unfair. Like everyone I speak to in the building, like the lads across the way, they were like, I just don't bother turning it on anymore. They're like, if I need to dry something, then I'll put it on. But if not, we just like bundle up, put hoodies on, put jackets on. We have like 3 pairs of socks on. I think it's them just being over dramatic. But yeah, I still tell the story to kind of
I don't know, because I've seen Harriet in lectures, who's I think she's got a lot more stuff in her room. But I've seen her with, like an old Scottish person with shawls and things in class. Like she's really double layering.
I saw her out the other day for the first time, and I was like, she was tall as well, and I was like, oh my god, like it's so weird because I was seeing her in person and it wasn't through a screen anymore. I was like, hi, like it was.
I'm not looking forward to that because I'm 5'8" on a good day, so people have no idea how to, like, I'm 5'9" when I wake up and then a bit of spinal compression, so I'm already like less than average height, and people only know me from this sort of perspective. So when they see me, they'd be like, oh man, you're a tiny person teaching us, looking down at me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, I've got a massive, like my flat is tall as hell. I'm the shortest one and I'm 5'9", and the rest of them are up. And like Harriet was like 5'11". It was massive.
That's like the Family Guy clip where Jesus came back and he was really small, and he's like, yes, I'm very small. 2,000 years ago, people were generally shorter. And it seems in the space of like the 8 years I've been at UWE, male students in particular have gone from regular height people to everyone clearly plays professional rugby. You're 6'4", 250 pounds, and could squash me with your thumb.
Yeah, like literally the lads do rugby, and like you called it. Yeah, it's so funny watching them because they're like these big gym lads wanting to go around, and me and my like female friend, we're just like, we'll just go in our rooms and you go gym, have a shower, and then we'll talk. We just can't be bothered with it.
Well, you've got all the The sofas, aren't they those kind of wooden frame things with like you'd find in a psychiatrist's waiting room? So when you've got two rugby goats sitting on that, you're like, well, one of you's taking up the two-seater sofa. Where are the rest of us supposed to sit?
Yeah, we just sit on the table. We just leave. It's just wood, so we have to have like cushions and that. So when we do like a 4-hour Game of Thrones marathon, we have to have like in between every episode, you have to get up and like wander around a little bit because they're just solid. It's bad, but I'd rather sit on the floor. One of them.
Yeah. Well, the cot mattress. I forget why we had another one. The kids had a sleepover last night in Lucy's room, and so we pulled out the spare cot mattress so they could sleep on the floor, camping style. They're only about 30 quid. You could get a bunch of those, and just when you're going to have a Game of Thrones marathon, pull it out from under your bed in your room, take it down the hall under your arm to the living room, and make it like giant sofa cushions.
I might have to look into that. It's quite cheap. Or just get like, I don't know. One of the lads has like a little pull-out thing. Because I don't know why he has a pull-out thing, because he was wary of it last time. So he just sits on that and he does his workouts on it, like a workout mat, like a yoga mat.
Okay.
I was like, that's not very supportive, having basically a thin mattress as your support. Yeah. It's like, it's better than the floor. I was like, oh, God. It's just high maintenance at this point. It's not even being special.
Do you know who you're living with next year? Is it those guys? Has that been one of the benefits of being in halls?
Oh, it's a huge benefit. Like I'm friendly with all of them because we've got 3 lads and 3 girls, and like 4 of us clicked really, really well. The other 2 kind of like do their own thing. They'll go home because they live really close by, but we're still friendly with them. But the lads have made some mates on their rugby course. They're gonna live with them, and then one of the girls that like I got really close with, she literally lives next door, like a room next door. But I'm living with wildlife students again, and I found a biomed student. I found one online. And
you found one online? That's weird because they're in the virtual room with you.
I can't find them anywhere else. I can't find them in person anymore. So like I was going online like, oh, we need one more person, and everyone was sending like applications. I was just looking for a biomed. So I'm a little bit happier now. But she loves genetics and I love anatomy, and she was like, oh, I don't like you anymore. She's like, I can't talk to you. I was like,
at least that's the same course. I had some biological science students who there was like 3 of them, and they were all best mates and they all hung out all the time and they did anatomy and physiology, and then 2 of them chose human physiology in second year. The other one went the ecology route, and I was like, oh, sorry, that's it now. I used to sort of be invested in the welfare of your degree, but now you're nothing to me, and they'd always sort of poke fun at me that she deserted me.
Yeah, I just think it's more interesting. And she was like, oh, I love everything under a microscope. I was like, you could still look at an organ down a microscope. You could still do that.
Exactly.
But no, that's one thing. I was like, she's going to help me on the genetic side and I'm going to help her on the anatomy side. But yeah.
What's she going to do next year, module-wise?
Well, we're doing quite similar.
Okay.
Well, I want to do obviously the human anatomy one, and then she wants to do like a blood science, cell signaling, and immunology or something like that.
Oh, okay. And then molecular genetics in the second semester, I guess.
Yeah, something along those lines.
So you'll need her help with the genetics because you've got to do studies in biological disease by default, but she's not going to need your help at all. So you're going to have to do favors or something, or pay her in sweets.
Got absolutely no idea. But she's super, super sweet. But she was like talking about like, oh, I've got like we talk about the coursework and that, and she's going off like, oh, I don't like but it's because we have the exams, because the exam timetable obviously got released.
Oh, and
do. And everyone else we know has 5. And we were so confused. We were like, oh, it's probably because of the anatomy. And she was like, that's why I hate it. She was like, I just wanted one block at the end so that I could like study throughout the year and get it. And I'm like, no, I like it throughout the year.
Yeah,
I was like,
surely she's, or like the ones that go, I just want at the end of the year so that it's done with. You go, yeah, but you won't have studied all year, will you? You can tell me you'll study all year, but you'll wait till Easter. And actually, I moved it yesterday because in fact, Harriet called and said, oh, the exam is right in the middle of the exams. And I was, oh, geez, of course it is. Yeah, not to worry. I'll shift it a week. So I just moved it a week later because that's the power of having the smaller ones. You can just kind of go, well, I made it. I control it. I'll move it to suit the exam schedule. Because that's been, it's been an interesting one actually, because you guys have never had exams with us before. So you're already used to the timetable being the one that hasn't had to be centrally designed, because normally the constraints are down at the ECC, the Nightingale Hospital. So all students across the university are mainly down there in these big zones doing written exams. And so the timetable has to be designed so that every module on every course can be in there for that 2-week period and in various other rooms around. And of course, so that means they're doing it. So students saying, oh my God, it's so unfair. I've only got 3 exams and they're all in the space of 6 days. But the exam period is 2 weeks wide and not spread out. And you say, yeah, but central timetabling of designed it, and there's obvious constraints there that can't please everyone. And they go, oh, that's fine. So this year, of course, it's all online and you're in your homes doing them, and there's no physical spaces needed. So we've had more control over it. And the same complaints are coming out. They're like, oh my God, I've got a 24-hour exam and then a day off and then another 24-hour exam. Why is that happening again? Plus, you've got coursework deadlines, as I'm finding out this morning. There seems to be more level 2 that they've got coursework due in the middle of their exams. So it's the same complaints as every year.
But I think no matter what, you're never going to please anyone. That's like the really frustrating thing. But also, like, because everything's through a screen, so I could email you with anything. That's a kind of a good thing. Like, I could email you with anything. But it's also, if someone finds a little thing, they're going to try and get it changed. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, they're going to try and like push to get something like, but having the 24-hour exams and then the day off and then another 24-hour exams, you're not meant to actually use that full 24 hours for your exam.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's meant to just be the time you're given, but people are obviously going to take the mick and use the entire time. So when they say that, just be like, well, you're not meant to. I don't know.
And it's much like so with the 24-hour thing, and we say, this exam should only be 2 hours. So please do only spend 2 hours. And my level 3 one, I said the same thing. I said, you've got 24 hours to do it, but that's just that you don't have to do it at 9:30 in the morning. You could do it at 1 in the afternoon if you like. But please only spend 3 hours total. And it will record the time you take, just because of the way I set it up. You can take 24 hours, but I'll know how long it took. But I won't look until afterwards. The idea is just to get a sense of who totally abused the nicety of having 24 hours and who didn't. And the data came out that those that spent maybe 4 hours, they all went over a little bit, but probably had a break or something. Took 4 hours, got whatever mark. And then those that spent 18 hours also got similar marks. You're like, right, so those people that spent the entire day stressing about it and going back and Googling everything and as I found out, checking on the WhatsApp groups about who's done this question or give me some examples, attempts at collusion, basically, got the same marks. And you say to people, right, I've got literal data that says those who spent their entire lives doing it got on average the same marks that those who did what I told them. And they go, yeah, I don't believe you. I'm gonna abuse the system anyway. Like in an ATM where you say to somebody, oh, it's not working. And they go, I will judge for myself and I will do it anyway. You can prove it and they won't believe you. So same thing, people will, like I say, you can't please them all, but even when you try to give them all that opportunity, they'll go, nah, screw it, I'm doing 24 hours because that's how I'm going to get the highest marks, by making my brain more tired. That's the key to success.
No, I was like, I read a book in the evening. It sounds so stupid. I won't read anything unless it will inform me. Like, I think if I'm gonna read a good book, I'm not gonna read like an action one, because I'm like, oh, if I was gonna read that, I'd just watch it on TV. It's just like, it's a weird thing in my head.
Got you.
So like, if I'm gonna read, I read something so that I can actually learn from it. So I was reading one last night and it was talking about how you put your brain under pressure, and like basically it's the stuff that I watched on Big Bang Theory as well. If you put like distraction noises on, if you put it at its maximum sort of, you put it in panic mode, it will more likely, I don't know, it's more efficient, it's faster, it's more accurate. It's like when you need to pee, you make better like decisions, that whole thing that goes on. So when people are like, oh, I'm gonna do it over 24 hours, I'm like, but your brain's really calm. Like, your brain is gonna like not reach, it's like, it's hard for me to sort of like explain, but like your brain isn't going to be able to work as efficiently and be able to reach parts of it. It's like when you leave something to the last minute and deadline.
I was going to say, yeah, it's that, you're calm thinking, I've got 3 weeks to do it, I've got 2 weeks to do it, it's only this much work, it's only going to take me for a few hours. But then you get down to those few hours and you go, oh dear God, now I've only got, and that, I think what you mean is that the more sensory input your brain has, the better it suddenly switches to almost, male selective hearing, where it goes, no, I'll channel out the stuff that I don't need to hear. So I'll channel out the street noises and the screaming or whatever, and I'll just hear the bit where I'm being told what to do.
Yeah.
So that's probably a good, I mean, no one will believe us if we told students,
That's what I do. When we do our like coursework things, I put music on one side, I leave my door open on the other, and I have like something going off in like the computer itself, like another form, like a YouTube video or something, just so I've got loads of distractions. And the ones
That's a lot going on.
Yeah, the ones that I use on is like some of my highest grades, and the ones where I just put peace and quiet is where I let my brain sort of like wander off, and then I get distracted, then I worry, and then it kind of all goes to pot. So
yeah, you don't want to let your mind wander, I guess, is what you're saying.
No.
Because I suppose that gives you too much time to think, how bad could this go? What does it mean if I fail? You know?
Like if I get the first 3 wrong, I'm like, right, this is screwed. I was like, I'm not even gonna try anymore, and I just like randomly click buttons, but no. But yeah, if I have like everything else around me, tends to go all right.
That's pretty good. So have you always had that? Is that how you've approached your studies throughout uni, or is that something you've learned this year through being forced into? Because you don't have the distractions around you. Say you go to the library and there's people milling, and that's harder to do, or you're in class and there's people, or physical class, and there's people chatting next to you. That's sort of that distraction, but you don't have that this year because it's just you locked in a room. Well, not locked in, obviously. Leave your own. It's not that would be really cruel. Our attendance matters so much. We're remotely locking your bedrooms on campus accommodation once the lecture starts. That'd be great.
Everyone just nap. We wouldn't even worry. We just nap.
That's true. It'd be cameras off and napping. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, I miss seeing that in class. Definitely people nodding off, because I really enjoy. Oh yeah, that happens. Yeah, there was one I felt really bad. It was about 5 years ago now, and she nodded off once, and I went, oh, just wake up. And she went, oh, really sorry. And then it happened again about 10 minutes later, and I got a friend to poke her, and she went, oh, really sorry. I was like, no, no worries. And then it happened again, and I went, we'll just wait this time for her to wake up on her own. And we all just sat there. Then she emailed me afterwards and said, I'm so sorry I fell asleep. I've got low-level narcolepsy. And I was like, oh dear God, why would you not tell me that in the lecture? I feel so guilty now that I basically took the mickey. And you were really good natured about it. And I knew her relatively well. Obviously, I didn't know about health, state of health, but I knew her relatively well that she could take a joke and she'd be really, but I was like, why would you not tell me you're a narcoleptic and you're going to fall asleep randomly? I wouldn't have, but I do miss that in class when people nod off and you just, you sort of say to the friend, give them a shake, or, flick their nose or whatever. And then they wake up because they're mortified and they don't fall asleep again. Generally, they're fully on it then.
It's true. She probably did that just to be like, but basically make you look like an idiot, make you look like a dick.
Yeah, exactly. Just make me feel guilty about it. Yeah, I've never really thought of it that way. The chances are I didn't have narcolepsy at all. Lying to me, she was, to make me feel guilty. What are you missing about being, well, I say missing, you haven't had it yet, but when you've been in pracs in the lab, what's that been like for you? Has it been better because you're in at all? Or is it useful that you've been not allowed to work with other people so you can kind of concentrate on what you're doing? Or do you wish, you're looking around the room and thinking, kind of wish I could get a bit closer and have a chat with you or show you this thing or whatever it might be?
Yeah, well, I've only been in, I think I went in twice. Obviously, I've signed up for the one we're going to be doing in a couple of weeks' time. But when I went in first time, I actually made a friend in it. So she was like, obviously you keep distance, but when you go and you wait in the waiting room sort of situation, no one talks to one another, but there's always that one person who's really talkative and really loud, and they carry the rest of the group. I've noticed that every time I've gone in, and it's normally the person dressed really smart, the one who's like, they're a bit older than everyone else, so they're a bit more mature, so they carry everyone. But it's always really awkward. It's like you'll sit on your phone, you'll try and make eye contact with people to see if you'll start a conversation, but no one does. And you feel weird if you start it, but when you go in, it's like you stand next to people, but you don't talk to them. And then obviously you start doing your practical when you start and you're looking around to see if you're doing the right thing, because you have no idea, like you're reading it, but you're like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. I don't know if I've put the wrong formula in, like using the spectrometer the first time round. I did not know what I was doing. And
level 2, they don't. It still happens then. But so you can't bounce off of people to go.
No. So thankfully the girl who was across from me, it turns out she's going to be living a few houses down from me next year. So that's pretty cool. But she was peering over the top, I'm so sorry, but I do not know what I'm doing. Can you help? I was like, I've got no clue. I was like, do you want me to put my hand up? She was like, yes, please. So I was no, she was like, I've got no idea. So she was so scared. And if someone else is scared, I'm like, oh, I'll do it. Like, I don't want to do it, but if you don't want to do it, I'm forced to. But yeah, obviously like they were so like understanding. Like, have you done this? I was like, no. They were like, well, you're doing it wrong. Right, let me do it, and then I'll show you how to do it, and then you can learn. I was like, okay, cool. But yeah, so it's just really weird because you've seen some of the people online, like everyone says this. You see people online and then you see them in person, and then you get freaked out because you don't want to approach them. It's like watching celebrities on TV. It's like you see them on TV and you don't think they're real, but then you see them in person and you get a bit like, oh, like they're real. It's like, oh, it's a weird dilemma of seeing someone in person.
That's true. I suppose I haven't. That is going to be weird for you guys.
Yeah, it's going to be weird as well because you have to say goodbye as well to people, and you have to walk away from people, which I'm not used to doing. I'm used to just pressing the end call and then just kind of like zoning out for a bit. After you stop recording or after you leave it, you don't bother like with facial expressions anymore. But as soon as you're in a face-to-face conversation, you have to turn away or walk away. It's so much harder. I've lost the complete ability to do it now.
That's going to be quite a hard thing for students in general, isn't it? After a year of not having to have certain Sheldon-like moments, I guess, not having to have certain social protocols.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be thrown back in. You'll have the warm-up period, I guess, like June 21st till late September to get used to other humans. But then you'll suddenly be back in class and going, I didn't know I'm supposed to sort of wave or that I can sit next to you. And that's a bit strange now. It's going to throw you off. I mean, I've got used to, there are certain people I see every day online, granted, and certain people that I, message frequently or have meetings with quite frequently. But there's a whole subset of staff in my department that I haven't seen in a whole year. And I've kind of got used to that idea. And what I really am not looking forward to is that first time you see someone that you haven't seen in about 6 months. You go, so how was lockdown? It's over now. I don't want to go through that. I'm not telling the same story 1,000 times. Let's just crack on and assume that we saw one another yesterday like it was 2019.
Well, it's like when it first started in emails, you put like, oh, be safe or like stay safe or like,
yeah,
you're well. Now it's just like, okay, cheers, bye. Like everyone's so over it completely. The etiquette is completely gone.
The out of office emails from staff saying, due to the pandemic, I'm now working from home. That was fine for a couple of weeks, but when it's like 3 months later, yeah, we know the whole world is. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that disappearing.
Forward to not having to use my email as often. I was looking on my phone as well. I was like checking my screen time just to see, and I could check it on my laptop as well. And I was shocked at how much time I spend on my emails a day. Like I used to look up to people and they'd be like, oh, I check my emails like 100 times a day because I'm checking it all the time. And I was like, why are you doing that? It's a waste of time. But now that I'm here, I get it because I don't want to miss anything from any lecturer or because like we got the SCC come through, so like the content creators, like that they're coming back now and they like training people, so every day we get something through from them. And if you miss it, because it's like, oh, this is you getting your ID, this is you going on the payroll, and if you don't do it in the time span, they're like, we have so many people, we need to keep going. And I'm like, I don't want to be checking.
You end up getting chased, don't you? But it does that. I think communication culture's changed a lot as well because we get, and there's different platforms. So of course you guys have got your social media groups. We've got primarily email, but also Teams, and Teams is useful for certain things and it's not being used properly, which means there's still lots of email conversations, which is more literal emails. And then people they've got used to, well, I don't have to talk to that person. I won't call them. I'll just email them a vague question and expect them to know what I'm talking about. And, and you get chased and all sorts of things and upload this to that and link to that. And that's going to be, I reckon that will continue. We'll get so late, we'll all be in the office and go, well, they are round the corner and I'm not used to standing. So I'll email them this question, we'll get that sort of lazy. I don't think we'll suddenly shift to, oh, I've missed people so much, I must go and have a chat. I think people will be like, kind of used to this not talking business now.
Yeah.
Which would be a bit of a shame. But you mentioned the content creation because I do remember you saying a while ago that you were thinking of going for that. And of course you do, which has got to have helped your mental well-being. You do your own YouTube channel. Which I did look at a couple once you said about it. I had a look because I was like, oh, I wonder what she's, and it's I mean, I almost need your video editing skills because you use an actual DSLR, don't you?
Yeah,
rather than a webcam like I do.
Yeah, so it's just like a little one. It's just like a little camera, but I use this for self-tapes as well because I do auditions and that. So I've got this massive tripod that's normally up in my room. The white walls are really handy because that's what I need.
I haven't got that luxury. I mean, granted, this is my room, so I could have dressed it however I like, but I don't have that luxury of effectively green screen or anything. So how have you? Because tell us what the channel's about and how it's helped you survive. Because you're more, not to be too complimentary, but you're more together, I think, than a lot of like you seem more self-aware. And I mean, maybe it's just the actress in you, because just for those listening, Beth also does acting and things like that. But so it might just be you feigning being sane, but you seem to be more, I don't know, coping better, I guess. So does the channel help with that? What does it do?
Well, oh God, this is like me going back to the 12-year-old in me when YouTube was a thing. Like in 2012, like peak, everyone was like, I want to start a YouTube channel. And I always did. But I think in the pandemic, because I started it in January, I didn't want to come into university and be like, oh guys, I'm gonna have a camera around and I'm gonna record you and I'm gonna do that. I didn't want to be the weird kid. But I also wanted to have sort of like a documentary style of what it was like in my first year, because it's not the same. It's completely different to what anyone else has gone through. And it's annoyed me literally my entire life. Is like, I like science and I like being creative. And everyone's like, choose one and go, like, pick one. And I hated it. I hated it every single time. So doing the channel means that it gets the entire flat out. So we'll interact with one another more. But it also means like in the evenings we have something to do. So like during the mornings we'll do all of our work, we'll attend our lectures, whatever. But it'll get like, we got baking, we got like, I learned a lot more about my flat. But the videos are more of like a vlog style, solely because I do not know how to edit. Like I've got absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I made it up completely as I went, but my my boyfriend is a huge editor. Like he got his degree from Plymouth in film and editing and film and media, and he's like an editor and producer on a bunch of like films going over in Ireland. So that's a job that I've got over acting in Ireland in August, I think. But he's like messaging me going like, oh, you could have done this, you could have done that. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I was like, I'm moving in with him next year with the rest of the flat because he's coming here to get his master's next year. And yeah, so
okay.
It's pretty cool. He's gonna I can't remember what it's called. I'm not that good a girlfriend. I can't remember what it's called. But he was like, yeah, like I'll teach you how to do it. So we have a spare room in our house next year. And he was like, I've got lights, cameras, I've got a green screen, I've got different backdrops. If you want to do anything, take advantage of me. And he's got these big cameras and like big tripods, and like he just wants to make videos and he wants to edit them. I was like, I don't mind as long as they're good. I'll put them on the channel. Like,
so your flatmates get involved as well. Do you talk to them about it, or do you kind of talk to them interviewee style kind of thing? Is it just you going about your day, or is it more?
We just go about our day. So I try and catch the moments that are the most stupid, us just doing random stuff. So the one that went out yesterday, because it's every single Thursday, which is stressful because I have to get the content filmed over the weekend, and then by Tuesday I have to be like editing it, because I don't want to just sit down and do it all in one go. I want to do it like throughout the week, otherwise I'll get stressed. But yeah, so that one was just random stuff. So I actually booked a table and I went out and I went to Bella Italia just down the street from U+WE, and we like just hung out with people and I recorded some stuff. And some like the people that I hang around with, I didn't realize how many funny stories they have. Like one of them was talking about their ex-boyfriend, for some reason, like his dad sold weed and he threw him under the bus and he got the police involved. And like one of them was like her ex-boyfriend pulled a knife out on her, and I was like, where are you finding these people, and can you find more of them, because it's great footage for me and a great story for you. So I just literally record stuff like that. So, and they like doing skits as well, I've discovered.
Skits? What, like comedy troupe style stuff?
Yeah, so the guys are a little bit anxious on camera, which most people are, but then I know 3 people now who have come up to me and like I don't know them very well, but like I had someone bump into me who watched the videos and has been like subscribed. He was like, "Are you Beth?" And I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "I watch your videos," and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like that was like I shriveled up inside, and I was like, "Oh my god." Because like, yeah, if you ever want to like when everything's over, I don't mind getting involved. I don't mind like filming them. I was like, people just want to be on camera. That's all it is.
That's it. That's almost the reverse of when more so weirdos, I suppose, go up to people and go, you know, you'd look really good on camera, and try to rope people. You've got the reverse happening. People going, I want to be in. I want to be in. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the, I suppose, the reverse issue with staff sometimes. You know, we're supposed to record everything. And in normal times, we also record in the room, which doesn't work very well because if you're a good lecturer, as it were, you won't be at the podium. You'll wander, which means you go out of camera shot within about 5 seconds. And it's just like a shoulder appears every now and then. But a lot of people are wary of being videoed, like staff, and the lectures being up. And you're like, but your job is literally to stand in front of people with your face. There just happens to be a recording of it at this point. Oh, no, no, I don't want to be on camera. Yeah, but you have an audience in essence, you know.
Yeah.
Although I've got to admit, I mean, you think it's cringeworthy when someone says, "Well, watch your videos." I
Yeah.
think you were in the lecture when was it Zeph put as his team's background the photo he got from me off Twitter when I was out for a run, and you're like, "Oh, dude, that's mortifying. That is horrendous." You know.
You handled it well though. Like
Yeah, well, you kind of get used to it. I mean, I got not used to, not that that happened like but I
yeah.
think you've got a YouTube presence that's almost worse because
Mm.
that's not a live thing. Like you don't
No.
know how many people are sat there watching you. It must be like us getting watched the recordings afterwards. I mentioned the other day about the embryology lecture, and because you won't be having it because there's not enough weeks in the term, but I'd still put it up.
Mm.
And that I'd look at which year I looked least fat in the lecture capture as to which one I would put up, you know,
Oh my god.
because of course you guys are all like watching a recording of it. And you
Yeah.
know, when it's live and you sat there and you can see how people are reacting, but when it's recording, say it was like a day that a member of staff was wearing, they had like coffee stain on their trousers or whatnot, or they look particularly disheveled or whatever like that. They probably don't want that version being the one that students revise from for ages. Whereas at least the editing, you can go, yeah, this is me on a good day, you know. My
Oh,
boyfriend edited the video and all that sort of thing.
it's weird. It's really weird because I have to check all the footage through with my friends as well because some like there's been times where I've been filming and someone will say something like, oh my god, don't put that in. I sound so stupid, don't put it in.
Yeah.
And I go through and like check. And I'm doing one at the moment, but I'm not going to release it until like I reach a certain amount of people watching it because it was all about the feminist movement that came out of women not feeling safe in the streets.
Oh, recently.
Yeah,
Ah,
so I decided I was like, oh, I kind of want to do something on that because I have obviously a lot of female friends in my life, and I got like four of them to chip in, and they recorded themselves, and they're doing things all around the country, all like different backgrounds, and they've said their story, and like I've been editing it, trying to get like news articles in, so doing stuff like that's really really fun for it, but like. I think when I'm like on campus and I'm like recording stuff, it's weird to edit it because you have to be careful because you don't want to get someone's face in the background as well. You don't want to get, because I was in the library the other day and someone came into the background of shot and like I was with like the girl who's on biomed, we were doing some coursework and they come right behind the camera and their face is in full shot and they're just bitching about someone. And I was like,
okay.
you are not being discreet. I was like, the camera's not hidden. I was like, right behind me. So you have to be careful for that, which I caught whilst I was editing, thank God. But no, it's
Well, I mean, yeah, to be fair, that's the other thing with, I always worry more from my wife's perspective when it's a lecture capture and I'm telling one of my random stories to relate it vaguely to the content. And I'll often say something about how I've got in trouble through doing something. And you think, yeah, I know that my wife's never going to watch these and go, you can't tell them that time that you were that stupid. But there's always that worry that I've not been discreet at all about being useless myself, you
yeah.
know. So that's all. And I think, oh, there's all kind because I make up what I'm going to say in each lecture. So every lecture capture is different and probably with an equally embarrassing different moment of my life that I've decided to divulge to my students.
It makes people seem more human. I hate people. Obviously, being professional is a huge thing. That's one of the first things we did when we came on the course.
Hmm.
But it's also there's an expectation that you have of some people. It's like a doctor, for example, you expect them to be professional in the environment, but they're also a human and they have funny stories and they've done stupid things, and people forget that no matter what occupation you do. So when you come onto the lectures and you bring like your cats on and you can hear your kids in the background, you're like, because people get intimidated as well by like, oh, Chris like has put this into the chat, like, oh, we need to get this done now. Like people obviously get a time crunch. It's like when you see that you have a family and you see that you have a lifestyle outside of the university, it sort of puts a little ease to it of like, he's just a human. Like there is no, it's the
Do you
same
think
with
it takes the pressure off you to be as on it as students often, like they feel the anxiety of multiple deadlines or catching up on notes because they have to, I don't know, achieve a certain thing in order to get the degree or get the job, or for us to not go, oh, aren't you rubbish or whatever. So do you find that being able to relate to us, or us being human, helps you go, actually, it's all right to drop the ball or not to meet, well, you've got to meet the deadline. Deadline's a deadline, but you know, it's all right to do it at the last minute and it's perfectly normal.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I remember emailing you because I'm terrible when it comes to anything with the biomedical skills. Although it's one of my highest grades, I just hate it. Like I can't I get nervous before it. I have to like get my coffee, my water and prep before it. I remember messaging you at the start like, oh, I don't think I'm like memorizing it. I don't think I'm like understanding it. And you were like, yeah, I don't get it either. You're like, I wasn't good at it. And that sorry to expose you.
Yeah, often say about like, oh, the renal lecture this week, and it's basically A-level physics, but I did A-level physics, but I was bad at it. Like I'm better now because I've put less pressure on it. So yeah, I'm always open when I like when people ask me about stats, particularly finding a project, or what stats should I do for this thing? And I immediately go, Sam, who's my office mate and does stats, so he's brilliant with statistics. I go, you're gonna have to ask Sam, I ain't got a clue. So yeah, I'm quite open about I can do maths, but it's not it must be why I do anatomy. It's just squishy organs. They don't really worry about maths and things. It's fine.
So much nicer. I just can't stand. We were in the biomedical skills. I won't. I'm just going to say how it is. I was in the biomedical ones yesterday, and I left halfway through because I just, when your brain zones out completely, and you're listening to it and you're watching it. But the problem with the biomedical ones is all the PowerPoints look the same. Like they don't change it.
Like it's a template.
Yeah. And they change the text that's on it. And obviously they'll ask the questions and you do the quiz and they do the Menti. But I was like, I could do this on my own. Like the poor lady was doing the best that she possibly could with what she was given. But I was like, oh, just go off and do it on my own. At least I can play music. I can do this. And I was like, there's no point me staying here in this lecture because I want the attendance. Like I attended it, I did it, and then I just did the work on my own. But sometimes I'm like, oh, I just can't be bothered. But when I come to the anatomy ones, I think that's why I like anatomy, is because you get us more involved, if you know what I mean. Like, and the lectures always change up, like the images always change. But yeah, I just completely zoned out from it, and I'm not going to hide it. Like I hate biomedical, like the skills.
I mean, I suppose that there's two things there. There's the creative and the scientific side. So the reason that my change up all the time is I get bored easy with the way that the lecture looks to me, and I think, well, I'm not going to be that invested in it if I don't mix it up. So if we as a university had you must use this template with a logo, I'd go insane out of boredom of hello and welcome to anatomy, But so that's probably something to relates to you, and you're trying to merge the creative and scientific sides of your world, and which may be again why you like anatomy, because I'm more of a creative thinker, and so the anatomy fits well to me. It's that visual way of learning. But then with the zoning out, that's a problem we've had for a long time as well, outside of biomedical skills. It's not just that maths is very dry to do, because if you're applying it, it's very, very interesting. Particularly like the physics of blood pressure and stuff. If you ignore the numbers, the fact that it is physics that's pushing stuff around, all this sort of thing. But 3-hour lecture blocks have been, there used to be 2 hours when we had 10 and 20 credit modules. Then modules became 15 and 30s, and suddenly it became 3 hours of content a week, which was then a 3-hour block. Now, students had always been nodding off a bit in a 2-hour thing towards the end because you get tired. But then 3 hours, we've had a lot of students saying to me in the past few years, yeah, I left after the second hour. When we had that second break, I thought, well, I'm brain dead, which means I won't take in anything about the third hour. So what's the point in staying? I might as well go and refresh and do my notes again. I'm pretty sure my youngest is saying, "Dad, I needed a poo right now," which I'll totally keep in the recording. But in fact, he's saying it. I'll be right back.
Okay,
I'll put that in there.
okay.
Yeah, so the 3 hour thing has been a problem, but I tried a couple of years ago now, suggested to all the BMS, like, what if you had 90 minutes twice a week? And they were like, well, we don't like 3 hours, but we also don't want to have to come in twice. And you're like, oh, for God's sake.
Can't win.
So when you're physically back, how do you think that's going to play out? If you've suddenly got 3 hours again, are you going to be...
We were talking about this the other day because obviously like the flat is all wildlife and they have all theirs at the same time. So on like when I have the anatomy and I'm away for like 3 hours, they're like, where have you been? What are you doing? I'm like, I've been doing work. And they're like, oh, well, we only have 1 hour lectures. Like they don't get it. Like I think the longest they had was a 2 hour one. But they don't get the 3 hour ones. Like at the start we had a 3 hour and then we had like an hour and a half, and then later on I had an hour in the evening. Like it was a really jam-packed day. But when I come to do it in person, I thought we were saying I might just fall asleep. You might have to be the one like flicking me to wake up, because everyone's going to go through it, of like our brains have got used to just focusing for a certain amount of time, and then when we get distracted, like if I didn't have my phone, the amount of times I've gone on my phone and just got on TikTok or something like that during a lecture, I'll admit full front to it, because everyone does it.
Yeah. I mean, are you? Why did the wildlife lot only have an hour, by the way?
I've got absolutely no idea. They've got, I think they have a few 2 hour ones, but every so often they'll have like a maths one or something, or statistics, and it's just, well, apparently yesterday one of the lecturers just cancelled it because he wasn't feeling too well.
Right.
That's like a 2 hour lecture. I was like, I've never had that happen so far.
Are they doing a bit more of the recording for the lecture, and then the hour they have is some kind of tutorial thing?
Yeah.
I mean, it's slightly easier for wildlife because the environmental science course has about 40 students and the wildlife course has about 50 students. So
yeah,
when they do, it's easier to manage that. Whereas BMS being 150, it's harder to go, we'll have a tutorial with all 150 of you, you know.
Yeah.
But do you think that will help you more if we do a bit more stuff to do? It'll be slightly easier next year when you've got some optional modules. Like human phys is a bit of a tricky one because there was 136 this year, so it's still quite a big one. SPOD will be all of BMS, but when you get down to blood science and pharmacology and stuff, it's 30, 40, 50 students. So it's a bit easier to do something engaging with you beyond desperately pleading for someone to have a crack at answering the question that you've thrown out into the ether.
Same people responding as well, because everyone else is too scared.
Well, I've which I never quite get, considering how much I screw up in the lectures. Making mistakes, clearly not a problem. And I always say at the very start of the year, if you just have a crack at it, you're the bravest one in the room because you just had a go. And I have noticed with the sign up for the on-campus lecture, I know all the names because they're all the people that show up and say stuff in the lectures online. And you're like, are there only actually 50 students on the module and the rest are phantoms? Because there's a huge number of names that I'm sure it's only 100 out of 250 showing up anyway, but of that 100, only about half of them put anything in the chat or put their cameras on or whatever. And I don't know how that's going to relate to next year, where they're suddenly, oh my God, they can see me when I'm asleep.
Yeah. I don't think I've thought about it. The only thing I think about is when I'm sat in the lecture. Like I've never sat in a lecture theatre before.
Yeah.
And like none of us have. And that alone is going to be bizarre, because there's going to be so many people. I don't know if we're going to be sat close to one another, if we're not, but just, I think having a small amount of people is great, because you get to focus solely on what you're doing and why you're doing the degree in the first place, because it's the things that you love doing. But like if it's, I don't know, if you've got more hands-on stuff, I think next year, hopefully if things gradually go back to normal, it's just going to be a whole new experience for us alone. And it's going to be a learning curve, which I've got a feeling, and I know a few people that aren't going to like it, and they might, like, not saying they're going to drop out, but they might get a bit too anxious to it. But if you wanted to do that, just go to the Open University.
Yeah.
Like, why would you?
On a science course, because I mean we're quite lucky. It hasn't really played out this year, of course, with the limited pracs you could do. But at least in science, you've got, even if it's lectures, the other half is doing labs, which next year will be more half and half. So it's more that hands-on stuff. But the lectures, it will be more challenging because suddenly you can't hide as easy when it's a lecture environment. You're asked a question, or even if it's an open one. And if you're trying to do some group stuff, or get some discussions going, it's harder to hide as well because you can't just flip your camera off. So you're right, there might be a lot more people deciding, well, they can't assess me on something that wasn't in that session. So as long as I've got the video, I'll be all right. But then my worry there is always at some point, you're going to have to talk to another human in a job interview. And if you can't do that because you've decided not to show up because you've developed, a pandemic related anxiety to being face to face with someone, that's going to be something really hard to get people over. Slightly easier for you, I guess, because of auditioning and stuff that you have to do that anyway. You've got to have a certain confidence. But
I think people put a fake thing on it. Like I was talking about asking people if you're an introvert or an extrovert, like that conversation came up. And every person said to me, like, oh, you're an extrovert, you're very outgoing, apart from one of my flatmates. And he was like, you're not. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, have you met me? And he was like, yeah. And you're exactly what I am. You are extroverted when you're at your prime and you're optimal. But as soon as you have low energy or like you're like a switch or change, you become an introvert and you get really anxious and really, I was like, it's like, how thoroughly have you been watching me?
Wow.
Like I've lived with you for a year and you know that. And like some of my friends of 12 years don't even know that. And he was like, yeah, what can I say? But
is that one studying wildlife or something else?
Yeah, wildlife.
Okay.
If he was doing like psychology or something, I'd get it.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I wouldn't say that I'm like that as such, but because I'll talk to anybody about anything, but equally I'm also very happy when there's no one around and I don't have to put in that effort. So I wouldn't say I'm like, I would not go dancing, that sort of thing. We were joking about this the other day, my wife and I, thank God we're not dancers as such, because we don't have the public confidence to, like our first dance at our wedding, and for both of us just mortifying. We don't do this when people are watching us. We can't think of anything worse. But in front of you lot, the lecture theatre, I'm absolutely fine. I'll make an ass of myself. I'll tell jokes and all that sort of thing. So I'd probably go a bit that way, but I wouldn't say in the switch of low energy. So do you think you do get anxious about stuff in general and compensate for it with high energy, or are you generally all right?
I'm like, I'm a huge like caffeine addict. It's horrific. Like I will go through 3 cups of coffee by like 12 a.m. I'll have like a Monster's energy drink. I'll have a coffee in the evening to like get me through like the last bit. My friends are like, you study biomedicine and you still consume a certain amount of caffeine. I'm like, yeah, well, it's normally the really difficult, like the doctors and the lawyers that know the most, that they will become alcoholics or drug addicts. Like it's like a weird coping mechanism. But
GPs in the 80s all smoking pipes with patients. Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I really I feel like I am a very, very confident person as it is, because I took the gap year and I did the solo travel thing. So you do, when you do stuff like that, you become a bit more confident. But I like my own time. Like I really, really enjoy like just sitting by myself. I will spend like 3 days on my own, just like chill and doing what I need to do. But I feel like I don't get too anxious.
Yeah.
No, like all my friends have anxiety and stuff like that. So I'm always the one having to like break it down for them. And because you have to break it down to the basics and sort of like just listen to what they think. But I think when you have people around you that have it, it helps me realize that I'm actually doing better than I thought I was. And it puts everything in perspective again. But
that helped actually. Yeah, as much as listening to other people with their problems and anxieties, and I mean I'm really bad at just coming up with solutions, as it were. So well, let's just fix the problem for you so it goes away and then you're fine. But I like to ask people questions for them to figure out for themselves. Otherwise it's just me preaching. But I do find that quite useful as the listener as well, that you figure out some of your own stuff by helping other people with their problems. It gives you either ideas or realizations about yourself, but it does highlight that there is a lot of people that suffer from anxiety, or they get even isolated and they don't talk to anybody because they think it's bringing a problem to someone, or they think they can only talk to somebody whose job it is to talk to, rather than just having a chat. And that's something problematic for those who I think haven't come to uni this year physically. They've stayed at home and not met people to live with because they haven't got those you're in the same kind of position as me conversations. So do you think having gone through a lockdown like environment, because you've been back and forth a bit, haven't you? Because I remember your parents' house a while ago was a different setup or something like that, or your granddad came in or something. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
So you've sort of changed environments a little bit. So you've had a bit of at home on your own with, being brought cups of tea, which sounds like it was welcome rather caffeine wise, rather than, oh dear God, here's granddad with another cup of tea.
Yeah.
You know, and then also being immersed in the flat environment. So do you think you're better prepared for next year?
Yeah, 100%. Every single person that I know, not saying that I hang around with weird people, but every single person has a problem, that they're going through. And so many people think that it's like a problem burdening it on other people, and that it's not good enough, it's not as bad a problem. But if every single person said that my problem wasn't big enough, then there would only be one person on the planet who actually had a problem. And like, if you think about it, so every single person, no matter, it's like the pain tolerance. Everyone has a different tolerance of pain depending on what you've gone through. So people's problems are going to be bigger than others depending on what you've gone through in your life as well. So when someone will come up to me like, oh, I didn't get into my dream university. I'm like, well, did you get in? And they're like, yeah, I got into my second choice. I'm like, well, what have you got to worry about? I get that it wasn't your dream, but like life doesn't happen perfectly, and people think that they can counteract it and say, well, I can make it perfect. I'm like, well, if you're doing that your entire life, you're going to end up on your deathbed exhausted, and like, you'll have no character because you won't have to see what you're capable of doing. I was supposed to be doing nursing up at York, or like I should be in drama school, but if like I had gone there, I'd be completely different to who I was now. Like I wouldn't have the channel, I wouldn't have these friends, and I wouldn't be like going down the path. But yeah, so I think people coming to each other and saying like, oh, I just like I feel a little bit down today. I'm like, okay, right, let's chat, let's get the kettle on, and let's just like talk it out, because otherwise what's going up over here is going to affect every single thing in your day. Like you're going to attend a lecture, for example, and you're going to be thinking about this one thing in the back of your head. You're going to get behind in that lecture and it's just going to ripple down, and I don't know, it's going to affect something later on. Just annoys me.
Relationships, I guess, because if you don't let it out, whether you're not letting out to the other person in your life, like, you're not going to tell your boyfriend every problem in your head, but you're going to chat to somebody, because otherwise that problem that you're not telling him about that doesn't technically involve him will affect your relationship with him.
Yeah.
And so and that can negatively impact their lives. And like you say, it's almost the point to end on, really. But I sort of want to get your final thought on it. But it's that idea of if no one ever says anything, nothing ever changes. And if we let all those little problems stay in our heads and we don't realize other people are having similar issues, the solutions will never come. If we don't talk, how do the problems go away? So are you quite, it sounds like you're quite a good sounding board for people. Is that something people recognize in you and seek out, or do you recognize that in other people and offer your help?
Well, I suck. I preach about it, but I suck when it comes to telling people how I'm doing and stuff like that. So when I can see it in people, I'm definitely a people watcher. I had to do it to make characters in acting. I had to watch people a lot, and I can see, like, I know the routine of my entire flat. Like I know what they're doing. So if something's off, it's like a red flag, and so I know that they're not going to come to me necessarily. So I'll maybe suggest something and be like, oh, do you want to go out to the shops just to get them out of the house? Because maybe they haven't gone to the gym today, or they're not, going for their like walk that they would do just to get them out. But no, I don't think that I am the most approachable person. I think I have a smiley face and I will talk to you, but people, like, I'll be like, oh, I'm working now. Or if I get stressed, I'm like, just leave me for a couple hours and I'll be fine. But if I can see that other people, are struggling, I'll try and make the first step.
That's very noble.
Yeah.
I tend to go with more, I'll take on everyone else's problems because I can handle it. Like there's that arrogance that, I'll solve that for you because I'll take it all on. I'll sort this other stuff out later. But then I like challenges. So that's I think it's better to be the way that you are. Just to end on putting myself down. That's a finisher. It's better to, I think, recognize in others that something's off and then take the opportunity to almost inception, like, well, let's go out for a walk because you might open up. Whereas I just more openly say, if anyone's got a problem, just come to me and unburden and I'll try and help you deal with it. I think it's almost healthier to recognize in others that they might need help rather than wait for it to come to you. So any final thought as to what you're going to, either the biggest thing you've learned this year or something you're going to take into next year, other than it sounds like a flagon of coffee, possibly an IV bag strapped to your leg full of caffeine?
If I could do that, I would. You have no idea. No, I think the thing that I'm gonna take is just, I might try it during the summer, is try and get my focus back on track. Is try and get put the phone away and get it back, because I'm a huge I like everything in the right place. So my folders are like organized. I have flashcards. I have everything's the same color. Like, it doesn't look like it from what's behind me, but everything's in the right place at the right time. So now that I can't focus, it's throwing me off my game. So that's probably what I'll try and do.
Yeah, definitely. Well, fantastic. That was really great. Thank you very much.
No
that was a good, healthy chat as well. A lot of mental stuff there. Yeah. So for those listening, to seek out, well, now there's a lot of pressure on us. Seek out Beth's channel. Although from what you were saying when we chatted a while ago, you had like 100 people, 100 views overnight or something.
It's only like 200 subs now, and 100 views.
Only 200.
Nice. Only 200.
Yeah. So doing a lot better than me already. But yes, do check that out. And thanks very much for talking, Beth, and everybody else. I'll see you next time.